Historic night there last night, and today still shock and awe after Donald Trump defies all the odds and all the polls, becoming America's 45th president of the United States. It is a stunning victory for the billionaire businessman, and for those who worried they did not have a voice in America, they did. You do. And change is underway. I am Trish Regan. Welcome, everyone, to the Intelligence Report. Just a short time ago, Hillary Clinton making her first remarks to her supporters after her defeat. Watch. All right, she gave what many are saying was a good speech, a classy speech. She admitted that she had lost, and that it was now time for the country to come together and to support a President Trump. We're going to get that sound for you in just a moment, but I also want to point out that President Obama is out there today congratulating his successor, inviting him to the White House tomorrow. That should be an interesting meeting. Here we go.
We are now all rooting for his success, uniting and leading the country. The peaceful transition of power is one of the hallmarks of our democracy. And over the next few months, we are going to show that to the world.
Meanwhile, here's Hillary Clinton.
We owe him an open mind and the chance to lead. Our constitutional democracy enshrines the peaceful transfer of power, and we don't just respect that, we cherish it. We have still not shattered that highest and hardest glass ceiling, but someday someone will, and hopefully sooner than we might think right now.
Again, what many are saying was a very good speech from Hillary Clinton, doing exactly what she needed to do today. We have complete coverage of what to expect from a Trump administration and why the polls and the pundits, they all got it oh so wrong, didn't they? But first, I want to go to our own Peter Barnes, who's live outside Trump Tower with a look at Trump's busy schedule. Hey, Peter.
Hey, Trish, I think he's kind of trying to relax today, but if you can see right behind me here, across the street, security, the NYPD and Secret Service have pulled up big sanitation dump trucks here to provide very quick security perimeter around Trump Tower, which is now the residence of the president-elect. Behind me on the street over here, all the foot traffic has been diverted over here. It's kind of like a circus. We have a lot of people stopping to take pictures. We have supporters. We have protesters. As for the candidate himself, he's probably just taking it a little bit easy. We heard from him twice since his victory speech in the early hours of this morning, both on social media, on Twitter, where his new handle, it's still real Donald Trump, but it says President-elect of the United States. He tweeted, "Such a beautiful and important evening. The forgotten man and women will never be forgotten again. We will come together as ever before." He also sent an email thank you note to his supporters today, saying that America is a beacon of hope where the impossible is possible. Both of these messages repeating the themes from his victory speech early this morning. Listen.
I say it is time for us to come together as one united people. I pledge to every citizen of our land that I will be president for all Americans.
It's going to be a lot of work. That's going to be hard because my favorite T-shirt that I've seen so far today, Trish, is a Trump supporter who said, "Welcome, President Trump, revenge of the deplorables."
Well,
Trish.
Look, you know, people feel like they had a chance to take their country back when you get 8 years of what we have seen with very little economic growth, with very few jobs being created, and those that were created essentially being part-time or, you know, without benefits. People have had enough, and it was remarkable to see that all these Rust Belt states said enough with the traditional Democratic elites. Peter Barnes, thank you so much. Good to have you here. Donald Trump won a victory few predicted, everyone, defying not only the polls, but defying the entire political establishment. So how did these experts, so-called experts, get it all so wrong? Though I would like to point out, we here at the Intelligence Report, we have always said from the very beginning that a Brexit-like victory was possible. In fact, even before Brexit, we were talking about how Donald Trump was reaching out to people in these states that were struggling economically in a way that we have not seen, frankly, anyone do since Ronald Reagan. Joining me right now, Emily Ekins, the director of polling at the Cato Institute, former Senator Scott Brown, Democratic strategist John Rowley, and the author of the book GOP GPS, Evan Siegfried. Good to have all of you here. All right, Scott Brown, I'll start with you up there in New Hampshire, where it looks like Maggie Hassan is going to be, your former Democratic governor, is going to be the new senator. It was a tough race with Kelly Ayotte, but overall, your thoughts on how people just got this one so darn wrong. What did they miss?
Well, Trish, as you know, I've been on your show many times, and I've said it's his to lose. I've said that from the beginning. I felt it as recently as yesterday morning, arguing with my wife and family, and because the political pundits, with all respect, didn't get it right. And they didn't get it right because they're not listening to the people, in that they were scared to actually tell people how they actually felt, because they would be demonized and vilified. Their cars would be scratched. Their signs would be ripped up. So they just kind of kept it to themselves. And I can't tell you, as I've said this before, how many people came up and said, hey, don't tell anybody I'm voting for Donald Trump. And these are the most unlikely people who would vote for Donald Trump.
I got to tell you, I heard the same thing, Scott. I heard the same thing, and I talked to so many people all over the country, different walks of life, from the extraordinarily successful to the middle class to the not so successful to evangelicals. I mean, right across the board. And they were somewhat afraid to say it, but they'd say, look, I really like what he's saying. And we haven't heard people say stuff like this. The political elite, the corruption that is perceived to be in the system, it has corrupted both sides, Emily. And I think this is a giant wake-up call to every single one of those lawmakers in Washington. Is it not?
I think it is a wake-up call. But honestly, this election is about being a low turnout election. We have about 4 to 5 million fewer voters who showed up at the polls, and far more people voted for third-party candidates. And on top of that, Hillary Clinton underperformed in virtually every group except for women. This election was lost by Hillary Clinton.
So this was, well, you know, Scott Brown making the point that earlier to me that people just don't like her, that this is part of her problem, that as a candidate, she truly does struggle. Because, you know, Evan, I know you were no Donald Trump fan, but he related to people in a way that she couldn't even hope to. I mean, she just had sort of no clue what your average American is up against. I've said it was sort of like Marie Antoinette. Let them eat cake. You know, buy them a few freebie things along the way. They'll vote for me. But you need more than that. You need solutions.
Yeah. Donald Trump, unlike Hillary Clinton, understood that people were hurting and felt bad. He saw that now, after last night, the last 3 of the last 4 elections at the federal level were direct repudiations of Barack Obama and the Democratic agenda. Democrats just felt, let's keep going, running on the greatness of Obamacare while premiums are skyrocketing. And Donald Trump even went out and talked about urban areas where Democrats take for granted. And while I don't think it shifted the vote in terms of turnout it kept people from turning out. In New York City, you have 7-1 Democrat to Republicans, and Hillary Clinton had 4.5
I met a lot of minority, and again, this is just anecdotal. So I would hear these things anecdotally, and I'm scratching my head saying this doesn't make sense with what we're seeing on the polling data, because, you know, it feels as though, you know, the pollsters are living in some kind of New York City, LA bubble. But John Rowley, this is an important thing that Evan brought up, in that Donald Trump was willing to take on these urban communities, minorities, and the challenges they have faced economically, and also just in terms of the crime rates there, in a way that we haven't seen Republicans do. They've been afraid to go there. Did that work to suppress the minority vote, or was it simply that they just didn't like Clinton?
I think Hillary Clinton ended up being a pretty flawed nominee. And I think, you know, I mean, there's no doubt about it. You have to tip your hand to Donald Trump. He's a master communicator. We knew that before he ran, and he's proved that, and maybe even proved it to himself in the process of this campaign. And, you know, there's just, I mean, right now, we're going to go through a season of reflection and depression among progressives. There's progressive Prozac that needs to be handed out right now, because I think there is just a...
But you know what, you guys kind of screwed up, because you had a candidate that, you know, look, I'm not a socialist, so I can't ever get on board with any of that, but he is someone that spoke to the masses, resonated with people. I'm talking about Bernie Sanders. You had a candidate that connected. You chose not to go with him. I've often said Joe Biden would have done a heck of a lot better. Why were the elites so willing to back Hillary Clinton when they should have known all along she would be a challenge?
Well, there were a few black swans that happened in the general election that I think were hard for anybody to anticipate, and I think they cut both ways. I mean, Hillary feigning was unlike anything we've seen in a presidential race. Donald Trump and
I don't know about that. I think people would cut her some slack for that.
Well, two or three things.
Poor woman had walking pneumonia.
That
maybe she should have just come out earlier and said, I got walking pneumonia. I'm going to be in and out of this thing.
The two different FBI announcements, and then also the Trump tapes. I mean, these are all things I think Hillary's campaign, or maybe just Hillary Clinton, I think they took too much comfort in the Trump tape almost ending the campaign at that point, because if you looked at a lot of numbers, it seemed like it
they thought that would be the case. Senator Brown, they wanted Donald Trump to be the nominee. They figured he was the easiest guy to beat. Boy, they sure got that one wrong, too. You've backed Donald Trump from the beginning. What is it that you saw in him all along, initially, that clearly so many missed?
Well, the fact that he's not a quitter, and he was basically on an island battling against the Democrats, Republicans, never Trumpers, the media, and he did it by himself, and that showed great courage. I love it when people say, oh, Hillary Clinton was a flawed candidate. Give me a break. A two-term senator, former First Lady, former Secretary of State. She was probably the strongest candidate you could have actually gotten when it comes right down to it.
No, but Scott, come on. She was a flawed candidate. She was a flawed candidate because she didn't connect.
Went through the process like everybody else.
Nah, but she didn't connect with the people. She didn't connect with the people.
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, her legacy, I mean, you think about her husband and NAFTA and, the job losses, 700,000 of them that resulted from NAFTA. You think about her pushing another trade agreement, the TPP agreement, and, this is not going to go over well in places that rely on American manufacturing.
Yes, but Trish, they knew that. The Democratic Party knew that, and they got rid of Bernie Sanders, as you referenced, and they put in Hillary Clinton. So you live by the sword, die by the sword. Here's the very interesting thing that your viewers need to know. Harry Reid changed the rules in the Senate to allow for 51 votes. So everything except the Supreme Court, the federal judges, the cabinet secretaries, the ambassadors, everybody's 51 votes. So when you talk about pushing forth an agenda to get this country moving again, President-elect Trump's going to have those tools to just do those very important things.
He's got the wind at his back. I mean, Evan, he's going in there, and he's got everything. I mean, and I also think that the Republican Party is coming around, including the Never Trumpers, because effectively he saved them. He saved the party, which really looked as though it could just be imploding. Yeah, they're all there in part because of him.
Yes, we still have a lot of work to do outreach to millennials and urban voters. But as a Never Trumper, Donald Trump's success as president is our success as a country, and I'm here to help if he needs it.
So you're on board?
Yes, he's our president.
And you think other Never
It's my patriotic duty to do
will
so.
also be on board now? Amen. Yeah.
But he has ruined the GOP brand among large blocks of voters, particularly Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, millennials. And so while the Republican Party has a win this time, come 2020, 2024, they're going to pay the price.
Well, and this is part of the, well, not necessarily. I mean, if he actually improves the economy and people have a better lot in life and they feel as though America is a place of opportunity the way it should be, then I would think Senator Brown, he's got some good things going for him going into the next round.
Yeah, Trish, he hasn't even served one day, and people are saying, oh, you wait till the next time. Listen, give the guy a chance, okay? The House and Senate hopefully will work together in a bipartisan, bicameral manner to put our country's interests first, as Americans first, and the Latinos, the Mexican Americans, the Muslim Americans, every American is going to help, hopefully, have an opportunity that they haven't had because of the big government on individuals and businesses, which are putting that wet blanket on growth and development. So there's a lot of things to do.
The other thing you got
to
point out is the big government and the liberal left has encouraged this divide and encouraged this split. And now he has an opportunity to bring everyone together. Stay with me. Don't go anywhere. Emily, Evan, John, Senator Brown. For more on Hillary Clinton's emotional morning, I want to check in right now with Fox News' Jennifer Griffin. Hey, Jennifer. Wow.
Hi, Trish. Well, we were here at the Wyndham New Yorker Hotel inside the ballroom when Hillary Clinton conceded and spoke to her staff. There were many, many members of her staff who were very visibly upset. There were a lot of hugs, a lot of tears, a very hard-fought race. And Hillary Clinton and Ann Holton, Tim Kaine's wife, were both wearing purple, a sign that they want to bring the country together. Red and blue, a recognition of just how divided the country is after this hard-fought election. Here's what Hillary Clinton just said.
I know how disappointed you feel because I feel it too. And so do tens of millions of Americans who invested their hopes and dreams in this effort. This is painful, and it will be for a long time. But I want you to remember this. Our campaign was never about one person or even one election. It was about the country we love and about building an America that's hopeful, inclusive, and big-hearted.
She apologized to her voters for not breaking through that highest, hardest glass ceiling. She said that the girls and women who come after her, they will sometime soon. What's interesting, Trish, about the poll results that we're now getting, it looks like Hillary Clinton is set to win the popular vote. But of course, as we know, it is the all-important electoral college map that is important. And the conventional wisdom always was that Hillary Clinton has an easier route to that electoral map. But in fact, it was Donald Trump who ran the tables. Not surprising, perhaps, for somebody who's made his life's work casinos. He gambled and he actually he ran the table. However, one thing that I'm noticing in the polls that came out, other conventional wisdom that has proven to be wrong, the women voters. Trump won white women voters by 10 points over Hillary Clinton, according to the poll results that we have so far, and also the Latino vote. Donald Trump managed to win 29% of the Latino vote. That is surprising. The president addressed the results today from the Rose Garden. Here's what he said.
Now, everybody is sad when their side loses an election. But the day after, we have to remember that we're actually all on one team. This is an intramural scrimmage. We're not Democrats first. We're not Republicans first. We are Americans first. We're patriots first.
So a sense from Democrats as well as Republicans today that the country is going to need to do a lot of healing. Back to you, Trish.
Indeed. You know, Jennifer, they do these autopsy reports here on this campaign. Where do they think it really went wrong? I mean, was it her underestimating the support for Donald Trump in some of these Rust Belt states? I mean, to think that he took Pennsylvania. This is territory that should have been hers, but she just seemed to miss it on these trade issues, on these working class voter issues.
I think it's not that they missed it. I think it was a tsunami that they couldn't address. The problem was that they just were not connecting in these Rust Belt states. Workers there were not buying their message of an inclusive economy, of an inclusive society. And I think that one point that the media missed, and it was something Donald Trump mentioned repeatedly, and that was that he had momentum on his side. When you looked at his rallies, he was getting 10,000 plus people at every rally. She was struggling to get 1,500, 2,500. It was only at the very end when she had President and Michelle Obama by her side that she was able to get 10,000 people. There were moments where they thought that the Latino vote would make a difference. In Arizona, she had probably her largest turnout in a typically red state. There were about 15,000 people in the days before the voters went to the polls, and that looked like she might be able to use that Latino vote to have her ride into states where North Carolina, Florida, and Nevada. Nevada did turn for her, but Florida and, of course, North Carolina did not.
One for the history books, I'd say. Jennifer Griffin, thank you so much. Hillary Clinton may have lost this election, but the biggest loser may just be the mainstream media, who just really never saw this coming. I mean, you think about the final weeks leading up to this election, and the liberal media, they kept saying over and over and over again that there was no path to 270 for Donald Trump. You know, here at Fox Business, we said it was going to be tough, but we kept telling you over and over and over again, don't count him out. One, it's just wrong to do that as a member of the media because you don't call it over until it's actually over. But two, there were paths. We said they'd be narrow, but there were paths, and it turned out there were quite a few of them. So how did the mainstream media get this one so wrong? Why is it that they are so out of touch with how voters really feel? For more analysis, I'm joined right now by Dan Gaynor from the Media Research Center. Dan, they really got it wrong. They got it wrong big, big, big time. And I kind of wonder if they were solving for the equation. In other words, they wanted an answer. They wanted Hillary Clinton in the Oval Office. They wanted this to happen. Do you think they just thought if they kept reporting that it was going to happen, that it would?
Well, I think there's some of that. We ran a campaign all this year, don't believe the liberal media. And apparently people didn't believe the liberal media. They didn't listen to Hollywood. This is a full-on repudiation of the elites in news and entertainment. The people who said either vote for Donald Trump or blank you in videos like Hollywood celebrities were doing. And the media who kept turning this into not a discussion of issues, but only discussion of polling. And it turns out that a lot of people weren't polled the way they wanted them to be.
Dan, ain't that the truth, right? I mean, people were afraid to say what they really thought. I look at the media sometimes, and I have certain views on this, having worked at different organizations and seeing over and over and over again just how absolutely liberal the bias is. A lot of different reasons for it, I suppose. You get a lot of English majors that, feel like we need to be moving increasingly towards a socialist type economy. But, for us business reporters out there who know that less regulation and lower taxes are good things for business, are good things for the economy, I think that, at least we understood a little bit more about how people were feeling outside of these bubbles of New York City, outside of Los Angeles, outside of Chicago. Do you think this is a wake-up call from the media? Are they going to start to change?
I think it should be a wake-up call for the media. They're tied into this New York, L.A., D.C. axis, and they act like nothing goes on in the rest of America. They don't want to cover people and their faith. They don't want to cover people and their jobs. They don't want to cover the impact of these climate regulations, how they're devastating coal states across the country.
I have a theory. I don't think they even understand it, Dan. I don't think they understand economics. And as a result, they shy away from these things. They don't understand why you just wouldn't lower taxes. They think, why not just make government bigger, 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 keep taxing more? They don't understand that at some point you're pushing on a string. And they choose not to understand it because you know what, Dan? It's complicated.
We took an economist to a Society of Professional Journalists event years ago, and he spoke to a room about 27 journalists. The first question he asked was, how many of you had training in economics or business? One person answered, and he laid into them. He said, how can you cover this when you don't know anything?
Well, hopefully they're waking up because they sure did. They sure got this wrong. It was an amazing thing to see there last night. Dan Gaynor, thank you very much. Good to have you here, sir.
It's a pleasure. Right. Thank you.
The markets are up. How about that? I had so many investors messaging me last night saying this is a buying opportunity. We were watching the futures market plunge 800 points overnight, which you can kind of expect only in that the markets, they like the script to be just as so, right? And they thought that Hillary Clinton was going to win, and all of a sudden they got this big jolt. But these are policies, economic policies, that Donald Trump has put forward that should benefit companies, that should benefit the markets. Lower taxes, less regulation. And it seems to be sinking in right now because we're looking at a huge rally on Wall Street, up 230 points, S&P trading up nearly 1%, NASDAQ up 0.8%. We're talking about the things Donald Trump can do to change our economy. Obamacare may be top of the list. I'll see you right back here in 2. Wow, check out this rally, everyone. The markets are sharply higher on the heels of last night's post-election freefall. You know, overnight the markets were really tumbling. We saw it in the futures market. In fact, at one point, Dow futures were down more than 860 points. Check out the reversal. I had so many investors messaging me last night saying this is actually a buying opportunity because they like the policy ideas that Donald Trump is putting forward. And what do you know? You're looking at a big rally here today. So that expected big, huge, massive sell-off, it didn't happen. Big rally also on the heels of Clinton's concession speech as people breathe a sigh of relief and say, okay, there's not going to be any kind of crazy litigation involved in this election. She has conceded and everyone is moving on and moving forward. Joining me right now, Recon Capital Partners CIO Kevin Kelly, Kingsview Asset Management CIO Scott Martin, and Countdown to the Closing Bell anchor Liz Clayman, who's there on the floor of the stock exchange. And Liz, what are those guys telling you right now?
This is really interesting, isn't it, Trish? Because overnight, I'm sure you got the same calls. What's going to happen to my 401k? The futures are down 800 points. Well, it sure is interesting. Given a few hours to absorb all of the news, the markets are fine right now. We are looking at a gain of 229 points for the Dow Jones Industrials. More importantly, we are now less than 100 points away from an all-time point close here at 18,562, all-time high, 36 rather. So we're seeing real gains here in most sectors. Healthcare, financials. Financials are hitting 9-month highs right now, Trish. Air is coming out of gold. Of course, overnight gold spiked about $50, so all the gold bugs got excited. But right now, things seem to be very positive. But I've been talking to traders here. They're saying it just looks a little too cute and buttoned up. You never know.
Sure, you never know. But
right.
Kevin, he came out, he gave really a great speech last night. It was a victorious speech, but it was also a speech that had gravitas. He talked about the need to bring the country together. He's recognizing that that is important. You know, the market had been way down. It started to climb back a little bit in the futures market after he spoke, and it seems as though people had the chance to sleep on it. They woke up and said, okay, today is a new day. And there are new opportunities. And if you do things, lessen regulation and cut taxes, shouldn't that benefit corporate America? Shouldn't that benefit the economy? And shouldn't that benefit Americans in the way of jobs?
Yeah, I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head. This was really a referendum on fiscal policies and reforms, and we're starting to see that.
And lack of, too.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, they've basically done nothing and left it entirely up to Janet Yellen and company. But go ahead.
Correct, yeah. And what's interesting to note is that Donald Trump went on the stump, and his economic policy was at the forefront throughout his entire campaign. And that's why you're seeing companies being rewarded today, because he's talked about a 10% repatriation of taxes. That's $2.7 trillion that can come over here and be used for mergers, M&As, buybacks. It's going to help capital and labor investment. It's going to be really good.
Can
Look
also
at the
be used for
sector.
Factories.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
The creation of new jobs. I mean, the idea, Scott, that we leave all this money overseas to benefit other people's economies instead of bringing it back, I mean, that doesn't make any economic sense.
Because of the prohibitive tax policies of the recent and now bye-bye administration, which is exactly what Donald Trump understands. He's got to encourage businesses. He's got to encourage consumers to be comfortable, go out and take risk, which is exactly what we saw with the voters and what they wanted to say. And what the markets are saying is that risk is back on, business development is back on, America is back in business because Trump's in the White House.
Wow. Liz, when you're looking at some of the sectors, you mentioned financial stocks are doing well. What about pharma, for example? Because Obamacare, of course, is going to be very much in focus as he gets into office.
Pharma's actually skyrocketing for a slightly different reason. Hillary Clinton had said if she became president, she would put extreme price controls onto certain drugs that are very expensive for the consumer. And I'm not sure Donald Trump is going to do the opposite, but the market certainly believes this. So you have all of these names spiking right now. Who knows? Donald Trump has also struck a very conciliatory tone toward people who do get the short end of the societal stick, don't have a lot of money for drugs. So I'm not sure pharma's in the clear, but we should also mention
that's a good point. Healthcare
stocks are weak right now.
The healthcare stocks doing very well as well. I mean, the challenge for them, of course, has been in this Obamacare environment that they just can't compete anymore, and it's causing premiums to skyrocket, and so many health insurers to get out of the business.
Biotech is up pretty significantly today. Look at Celgene. So that's actually what's really leading the healthcare, because it used to trade at a premium, but when all this reform came out from Senator Warren, Senator Sanders, they got crushed. Now they're trading back up.
Financials as well.
Financials as well. Let me go to you, Scott, and ask something, because the media got it all wrong. The mainstream media that just said this guy has no chance in HELL, and it almost felt as though the market was getting it a little bit wrong too. I mean, there you see last night the way the futures were reacting, but in many ways, I guess the market reacts more quickly, and I mean, how do you interpret this, basically, that we're up 250?
What a difference 8
when
hours
they thought
makes,
he wouldn't succeed.
I'll tell you, it's a faster reaction or faster recovery even than Brexit, which took a couple days to sort out. But look at financials and some of the things that have happened as Elizabeth Warren fades into the background here. I mean, there's so many things exciting going on in the market that the market's telling you, as it looks forward into what Trump is going to bring this economy, that should get your money involved in stocks here, because we have a clear path. Finally.
Wow. All right. Well, thank you so much to the whole team, Kevin, Scott, and Liz. Liz, I'm going to see you in a little bit. Make sure everyone tune in, because Liz is going to be live from the New York Stock Exchange for the closing bell today at the New York Stock Exchange. We have a rally on our hands. She's got you covered. Breaking news right now for you. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, the latest Washington bigwig to offer his congratulations today to President-elect Donald Trump. He also talked about Speaker Paul Ryan and the way forward for a Republican Congress and a Republican president. Watch him here.
I know the Speaker shares my view that we would like to see the country go in a different direction, and intend to work with him to change courses, to change the course for America.
Yeah, I'll tell you, they've got a lot of opportunity. We'll see whether or not they can all work together. They should be incentivized to do so. Earlier today, Paul Ryan said Trump's victory has turned politics on its head. Ain't that the truth? All right, just a short time ago, the New Hampshire Secretary of State has released the official results for the state's Senate race. Democratic Governor Maggie Hassan winning the race against Republican incumbent Kelly Ayotte by only 1,023 votes. Talking about a state where every vote counts. Let's go straight to Fox News correspondent Molly Line, who is live in Manchester, New Hampshire, with the very latest on the Senate race from the live free or die state. It was pretty touch and go. Interesting that it remained a blue state in the end, Molly.
Yeah, absolutely. The live free or die state, the granite state, it was a squeaker, a nail biter well into the night. And finally, we have our official results from the Secretary of State's office that we've been waiting for throughout the day regarding this very hard fought Senate battle. The Secretary of State's office showing that Maggie Hassan, the Democratic governor, winning by just a little more than 1,000 votes. That is a fraction of a percent. She did claim victory early on today, even before those certified results came out, over the Republican Senator Kelly Ayotte, the incumbent. Hassan's campaign releasing a statement saying, as senator, she will always put the people of New Hampshire first, and she will work to heal the divisions this election has exposed and fight to build a future where all Granite Staters are included in our shared economic success. Meanwhile, Senator Ayotte has not conceded yet. Prior to those certified results being put out, her spokeswoman released a statement saying, this has been a closely contested race from the beginning, and we look forward to the results being announced by the Secretary of State and ensuring that every vote is counted in this race that has received an historic level of interest. Now, party insiders say that this may not be the end, that the Secretary of State's official release may not necessarily mean that this is over, that it's possible, even perhaps likely, that the Ayotte campaign may seek a recount in this election. So we're still waiting to hear from Team Ayotte to see if that will be what happens next.
Oh, my goodness. All right. Plenty of drama to go around in that little state. Okay, thanks so much, Molly. We'll keep checking in. Moments ago, President Obama addressing the nation for the first time since Donald Trump's stunning victory. After congratulating both candidates on a hard-fought campaign, Mr. Obama made it clear that we are all on the same team, and he stressed the importance of unity in the wake of the election. Here he is.
Everybody is sad when their side loses an election. But the day after, we have to remember that we're actually all on one team. This is an intramural scrimmage. We're not Democrats first. We're not Republicans first. We are Americans first.
All right, everyone. So now that Donald Trump is set to take the White House by storm, what is going to happen to Obama's agenda? I mean, throughout his campaign, Trump vowed over and over again to reverse many of Obama's signature policies, including the Iran nuclear deal, immigration reform. So can he do it? Obamacare as well? Joining me right now, Washington Examiner senior political analyst Michael Barone. Michael, always good to see you. I mean, look, I think in so many ways this was a rejection not just of Hillary Clinton and her inability to connect and the concerns about corruption, et cetera, but this was a rejection of President Obama and his entire economic agenda, which has sent the country absolutely nowhere. How does Trump reverse it?
Trish, don't hold back. Tell me what you really think. Listen, I think, you know, the signature achievements of the Obama administration, according to Ben Rhodes, the brother of the president of CBS News, and the Henry Kissinger of the millennial generation, Deputy National Security Advisor, Obamacare, the Iran nuclear deal. They're unpopular in the polls. They're unpopular in Congress. They were sketchily and hastily put together without attention to details. Obamacare is in danger of implosion. The Iran nuclear deal, we just made concession after concession. You don't have to think that Donald Trump is a miracle worker as a deal maker to say that that wasn't a good deal and so forth. Yeah. President Obama, after the Republicans won majorities in Congress, said, I've got a pen and a phone. I can make regulations. Well, some of his regulations, like the seeming amnesty of 5 million illegal immigrants, that's been stopped by a federal judge and by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. Supreme Court did not intervene.
All those executive orders that he put forward.
Every executive order can be repealed by another executive order. And I would expect that if the Trump transition team is well organized, and I think that's an if, given the character of the Trump campaign, they're going to have a whole list.
He's got some pretty smart people, I would say, around him, Michael. Very smart people, certainly in terms of the economy, certainly in terms of Homeland Security.
But I think that one of the things they should be doing, I think, to fulfill the promises and the platform planks that Mr. Trump has advocated is a whole list of things, and force him to keep signing those gosh darn things all afternoon after the before the inaugural balls, after the swearing in.
So he's got a lot of work to do. He clearly doesn't shy away from work. I think it's interesting in that he is a deal guy. And a deal guy is very different than a Washington bureaucrat. And as a deal guy, he wants to get a deal done, but he knows the importance of leverage. I mean, you think about what happened with the Iran nuclear deal, and President Obama was so darn desperate to get this thing done. We gave away, you know, pretty much all we had. And I think that you can anticipate a little bit more back and forth, can you not, from Donald Trump?
Well, I think you can. I think that one of President Obama's weaknesses as a president is that he lacks either the inclination or the skill to engage in negotiations with people who have different views. Bill Clinton had that skill and inclination to a very high degree. George W. Bush, to an extent that has been forgotten, showed that he had the inclination and ability to do that, at least in his first 6 years, in a major way. President Obama hasn't done that. Donald Trump seems to take the view that you should stake out sort of impossible positions first and then negotiate. We'll see how well that does. But I noted Speaker Ryan's
If nothing else, it would be very interesting for all of us, Michael, to watch. You know, he's got a lot of momentum right now. He's got the House. He's got the Senate. Let's see what he can get done. And he's got, you know what? He's got a lot of Democrats as well, and as he should, because there are many blue-collar Democrats that crossed over and supported him. And I suppose that, you know, there can be some agreement on a lot of these economic issues.
Well, there's a lot of Democratic senators up for re-election in 2018
they're gonna have to work with him.
Trump carried. Yeah. They'll have an incentive to work with him. We'll see if they do.
Interesting times. Michael Barone, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You know, from day one, ever since Donald Trump descended on that escalator in Trump Tower with Melania Trump by his side, we have been saying on the intelligence report that you can't dismiss him because Donald Trump is tapping into something that has been brewing for quite some time. America's frustration with the establishment, America's frustration with the liberal elite agenda, our broken borders, trade, economic policies that have failed over and over the working class. Here you go. Donald Trump, who says this stuff a lot of people may be thinking somewhere deep in their head, but they dare not say. Many college-educated voters in the U.S. are afraid to admit that they're backing Donald Trump. It's the same kind of thing you saw with Brexit, right? Voters seem to want the antithesis of the status quo. The straight-talking billionaire could be the one that could cut through all that cronyism and corruption in Washington. It's time for the establishment to tell Ted Cruz to get on board. You know, there are a lot of similarities, I got to tell you, between Donald Trump's win and Brexit. I mean, even coming into the studio last night, and the thinking out there in mainstream media was that he just couldn't do it, much like people thought on Brexit. You know, like the Brits, Americans want our country back. We want security, both in terms of borders and in terms of jobs. You need to put America first. What's so controversial about that? So should we really be surprised by the outcome? I think not. Joining me right now, Emily Akins, Evan Siegfried, American Majority CEO, Ned Ryan, and syndicated radio host Chris Hahn. Chris, what'd I tell you?
You were right, Trish. What do you want me to say? All
Thank you. Thank you for that. That's all I need to hear.
Congratulations, Trish Regan, and congratulations, Donald Trump. You got it from me.
Listen,
I love you.
No, Chris, but what I said all along, what I have said from the beginning is that you're looking at basically parties that no longer matter. And she missed an opportunity because this should have been her sweet spot. She should have gone for these union workers, these Rust Belt workers, these coal miners that are facing such economic challenges. And instead, it was a let-them-eat-cake attitude. She said she's going to put the coal miners out of business. How do you win Pennsylvania with rhetoric like that?
You know, I think that there's a lot of soul-searching going on right now in the Democratic Party about how they lost the upper Midwest in Pennsylvania. And I think that's going to be a subject of many conversations that are going to be going on both in New York and Washington and around the country in Democratic Party offices for the next couple of months. And until they figure out that answer, we're going to have a big problem getting the country back in 4 years. But I think they will.
You know, Ned Ryan, this is so important. It's important for Democrats to be having this conversation. It's important for them to be doing this soul searching. It's important for the Republican establishment as well. In other words, we should all be on the same page in that we want America working again. And we want the policies and programs that are going to get people back to work. On that, we should agree.
Exactly, and this is a moment. I was encouraged to hear Paul Ryan. We'll see if he, how long he's going to be speaker. But his words this morning, it's time for us to go big and go bold. You know, White House, Senate, House. I think the thing that some people have missed is there are now 33 Republican governors. 70% of the state legislatures are owned by Republicans. There are no more excuses now. Republicans have been given an opportunity. And I think the first 100 days of the Donald Trump presidency could be pretty amazing if he really does what he said he was going to do. Repeal Obamacare, put up a Federalist Society judge for the Supreme Court, begin some of his immigration reform. You know, the thing, though, Trish, that I think should not be neglected, that he was really starting to talk about, was inner city outreach and coalition building with the African American and Hispanic communities. Because guess what? After all the elation of last night, there were wins, it was great. Guess what? After last night, Republicans have now lost 6 of the last 7 popular votes in the presidential. So I want people to be clear-eyed here and understand they've been given an opportunity. At the same time, there's no resting on the laurels.
He's willing to go there,
though.
You know, that's what's interesting to me. Evan, we've seen so many Republican candidates, conservatives, shy away from tackling the issues in the inner cities because you run the risk that if you dare to say, hey, we got to shake things up, we got to change this, that you are perceived somehow as anti-minority. He's going, right in saying, look, we've got to change these policies because they do not work. And isn't this critical? And I hate to look at this in such a partisan way because I really think ultimately Americans are not partisan and they all want the same thing and they chose the candidate that they think can really heal the economy. But if the Republicans want to continue amassing power, they're going to have to recognize that, yeah, you got to take on some of these issues in a positive way.
We absolutely do. If you actually look at what Democrats have done in running cities, look at New York City. They've imposed a plastic bag tax. For every time you go to a store, they're going to tax you 5 cents per bag, be it paper or plastic, if you ever do anything. And it actually disproportionately hits minority and the poorer communities in all of New York City. And the approach of the overwhelmingly majority Democratic establishment here, let them eat cake. It's not a big problem. They can bring their own bags. They're concerned about paying their bills. They don't have affordable housing. Republicans need to take up the mantle of affordable housing in urban communities as well as transportation infrastructure. That would really
You know, and
help
there's two
us.
different ways to do it, right? I mean, there's the let's just give them something, or let's actually provide the opportunity so that people can do it for themselves. And Emily, that's what they want. They don't want the handouts.